In this video, I do a 6-hour round trip looking for a rare warbler and an American wader we failed to see recently. Then, I go up the Wirral to somewhere very familiar to look for a couple of buntings, twice. Morning folks, I've done a bit of a crazy thing. I've driven on a day off work nearly 3 hours into Leicestershire in the hope of finding a dusky warbler that was seen here over the last couple of days, a bird we really need for our year list, and one I've only ever seen once and badly. It's not been reported yet today, and the weather's pretty nasty, so it's kind of a fingers crossed type of thing. Crazy things we do for birding. Stick with me.
Yes folks, absolute madness. And what makes it more crazy is I had to be back in North Wales at 5 o'clock for one of the girls' open evenings at college, so I really did have a short window. With haste I headed down the path towards a boardwalk near a little river where, in some willows, there'd been a dusky warbler sighted in previous days. When I arrived though, there were no other birders. So, I wasn't really fancying my chances. It was a bit of a needle in a haystack. That was though, until I heard it.
I only just heard it. I haven't got a really brief view of it. Is that it? Something's just flown over me now, it looks like a blue tip. God, I hope it shows again.
I was soon joined by two other birders, and we walked around the willows, occasionally hearing the dusky warbler call. Eventually, we started seeing some movement in the trees, but it was difficult to pick birds out through all the leaves. One of the other birders spotted another rarity present, a Siberian chiffchaff. At about this time, I managed to get the camera on one of the birds moving through the trees, presuming at first it was the chiffchaff, but it wasn't. It was our target species, the dusky warbler. I only got a few seconds of footage of this warbler that breeds in East Asia and winters in Southeast Asia. A bird that, although rare, is a regular autumn visitor to the UK, despite us being 3,000 kilometres away from its breeding grounds. There's even records of some individuals spending the winter here. Regardless, I was really happy to see it, and although my views were brief, they were far better than the last and only other time I've seen this species.
Hey folks, that was tough. That was really tough. There was a lot of vegetation on those willows, so everything moving through it was like obscured most of the time, and there were quite a few birds. It was tough to get a video of anything. But anyway, I got a few seconds of what I think is the dusky warbler. There was a Siberian chiffchaff there as well that I failed to get footage of. But anyway, great, awesome, fantastic. That's another one for the year list, and that means we're beating last year. That's super. Right, I've got one more stop before I have to go home.
About 45 minutes later, I arrived at a destination we'd only been a few videos ago, and looking for the same bird we failed to see.
Hey folks, I have made a stop at Ibrook reservoir. We were here a few videos ago to look for an American golden plover. Today I'm hoping to see it. It's not been reported yet, but fingers crossed it was here yesterday. So stick with me, let's see if we can find it. I haven't got long because I've got to get home soon.
When I arrived, unlike last time, there were no golden plovers there, which was a little worrying. In fact, the place was pretty quiet generally. There were a few egrets fishing in the shallows, including this great white egret, and on the opposite side a little egret. And flying above my head majestically, a pair of red kites. This is a species that was once on the brink of extinction in the UK, but with introductions and conservation measures, they have made an amazing comeback. Since 1995, there's been a 2,400% population increase, and the UK now holds 10% of the world population of this species. Now, that is a serious success story. Whilst watching the kites, I noticed a couple of Egyptian geese fly over, an introduced species that's doing very well and is considered invasive. In the far distance, there was plenty of ducks, but all of them seemed quite far away. There were very few birds close to this end of the water. Whilst I was watching a few lapwings, I discovered why.
Hey folks, so I've just been chatting to another birder here, and there's been a game shoot going on in the field behind us, and they've been shooting just a few minutes ago. It's really loud and it seems to have pretty much scared all the birds off. Apparently there was a flock of golden plover before the shoot who've disappeared. So it's not looking good. I'm going to stick around for another half an hour just in case they return. May have dipped this one again.
As I stood watching the water, the shooting continued, and it seemed to be getting even closer to me, and louder. The more the shooting went on, the more red-legged partridges flew over the hedge, landing in the grass and on the water's edge in front of me. One, unfortunately, landed in the reservoir itself, but tragically, I suspect it was dead before it hit the water. I know this is an introduced species, and these birds were probably bred to be hunted, but to me, it's really sad to see them shot down. I stuck around for another half an hour or so, watching the endless stream of partridges either running through the hedge across the road or flying over onto the edge of the water. Eventually, about 10 minutes before I had to leave, the shooting stopped. I did stick around about 5 minutes longer than I really should have, but no plovers returned. In fact, the only birds that returned to the water close to me were a few mollards and a pair of mute swans. So I had to concede defeat.
Hey folks, unfortunately it's time for me to go home, my time is up. And again, I've dipped the American golden plover. Bit of a pain, but never mind, at least I got the dusky warbler, so that's another one for the year list.
The next day I headed up the Wirral to a destination you may recognise from our previous video.
Hey folks, I'm back at Leasowe on the Wirral again. Not for a yellow-browed warbler this time, that game is over for this year. There has been a lapland bunting reported here over the last couple of days. Although it is a bird I saw earlier in the year, it was extremely distant. So I've come for a better view. If I do see it, that'll be the third one I've ever seen. So that will be fantastic. Let's see if we do. Stick with me.
In previous days, the lapland bunting had been spotted in a coastal horse paddock. To get there, it was less than 10 minutes walk from the car park, down a footpath. I wandered until I found some other birders. When I got chatting to some of the people there, it turns out the lapland bunting wasn't present currently. In fact, it had been a bit sporadic, hanging round with quite a mobile flock of linnets, so it was a waiting game. I chatted to the other birders and watched some of the other birds present, like this magpie that was sifting through the horse manure. After a short while, a small flock of linnets came in, which was encouraging. Was our lapland bunting amongst them? Everyone scanned every bird present, some were sat on the fence and some were feeding on the floor. As they were amongst vegetation, it was quite tricky to see all of them. But soon, it didn't really matter as they all flew off, courtesy of this little predator. The kestrel hovered over the field for a short while and then came down and landed on a very near fence post. And surprisingly, despite all the birders being there and noisily chatting, the kestrel didn't at all seem bothered. It sat there for quite a while, had a preen and a look around. Although kestrels are amazing to see and fantastic this close, the longer it stayed, the less chance we had of seeing the lapland bunting. Eventually, after about 10 minutes, the kestrel took off and flew across the fields. Now we had to hope that all the other small birds weren't too spooked and may come back. And after a while, they did. A small flock of linnets landed on the fence, and they were joined by our target species, the lapland bunting. Initially, it sat behind the fence post, a little obscured, but after a short while, it flew and landed on top of one of the posts, giving us somewhat distant but very clear views of this fantastic looking little bunting. Now, in the past, I haven't had a great deal of luck with this species, 2 years ago, we saw one at Filey in Yorkshire. Kaylee had good views of it. I only just saw it as it was taking off, so didn't get great views and got no footage. Earlier this year, I saw one at Corstheiger on Anglesey. That bird, although very cool, was extremely distant, and there was an awful lot of heat haze, so again, not great footage. So to get this one today was absolutely fantastic, and it was a very cool looking bird. It sat extremely obligingly on the fence post, giving everyone reasonable views. I watched the Lapland bunting for a while, but unfortunately it was starting to get dark, and it had started raining too. So happy with my sighting, I headed back towards the car.
Well folks, that was lovely. It wasn't close by any means, but it was a hell of a lot closer than the one I saw earlier in the year. And it was an absolutely stunning looking bird as well. Really well marked, fantastic. I'd say that was a success.
My time with this bird wasn't quite over yet though. 2 days later, in better weather, I headed back.
Hey folks, I'm back at Leasowe on the Wirral. It's a lovely day today, much better than the other day. I'm kind of hoping to get more views of the Lapland bunting because I'm greedy like that. Let's see if we can.
When I arrived, it was late morning and the car park was nearly full. I wondered why it was so busy on a weekday. It turns out most of the people were birders, as the Lapland bunting wasn't the only sighting made here today. More on that in a little bit. I headed past a group of birders who were looking for a firecrest, one of the birds that have been reported here today, down the footpath and towards the horse paddock. When I arrived, I spotted a friend from 2 days previous, the kestrel, again surveying the scene from its favourite fence post. This didn't fill me with much confidence, but I had a little bit more time today, and it wasn't long after the kestrel had disappeared that the Lapland bunting showed up, although more distant, on the back fence of the paddock. It showed for a few minutes, then dropped and disappeared for about half an hour. Then jumped up again and disappeared again. It really wasn't behaving today.
Hey folks, the Lapland bunting, although here, isn't really playing ball today. It's staying quite distant, so I've heard reports that just on the beach here there's a couple of snow buntings. So I'm going to go and have a look at them, because they're lovely, and then come back and have another look, hoping Mr. Lapland bunting might be behaving.
En route down the path, I bumped into Peter, a fellow birder who'd found something pretty interesting.
Hey folks, I'm here with another birder and someone who's an entomologist. Did I get that right?
Correct.
So he's into insects. And in front of us, there's a rare species of fly. And he's going to tell me what it is again, because I've already forgotten.
Yeah, it's called a locust blowfly, and it's quite a rare insect in this country.
There you go. And they parasitise locusts in the Mediterranean. So it being in this country in November is reasonably unusual. Cool, eh?
Pete told me fascinatingly that seeing this fly in the UK was a rarer sight than us seeing the Lapland bunting here, which is absolutely incredible. Without Pete's expertise, I would have just walked past it. Now though, on towards the seafront, and hopefully one of my favourite little birds to find by the coast at winter, the snow bunting. As I walked along the seafront, I met a couple of other birders coming in the other direction who pointed out where the snow buntings last were, and it didn't take me long to find them. Just above the beach there's a concrete slope with some structures. These act as sea defences to prevent flooding, and on top of one of these structures there was 2 snow buntings. These 2 wonderful little birds spent a short time shaking off and preening before jumping down onto the floor to feed. I decided to walk a little bit further up and hide behind one of the little concrete structures, leaning my camera on it to try and get some steady footage. As I watched the birds feeding on the shoreline, they came closer and closer. This was, of course, absolutely fantastic, giving me some really close-up views of these incredible buntings. Snow buntings do breed in this country, up in the Cairngorm Mountains in Scotland, but disperse in winter and are often found around the coasts. Pretty much every year at least one shows up here on the Wirral, or close to home on the North Wales coast, giving us opportunity to spend time with these fantastic birds. As I watched on, the buntings got even closer, to the point where they walked past me. I was reluctant to stand up, fearing that I would spook them, as there was other birders there watching. I'd been told earlier in the day they'd been spooked by dog walkers, so I waited until they'd passed me and very slowly got to my feet and walked away. Luckily, they continued to feed. What a super cool couple of birds they are, and hopefully not the last ones we see this winter. Now though, I headed back along the seafront, as I had unfinished business with the other bunting species here.
Well folks, that was excellent. There were 2 snow buntings and they were showing absolutely fantastically in the sun. It was nice to see Ashley as well, my friend and fellow birder. Yeah, great. I'm going to go back and see if that Lapland bunting's going to behave now.
I arrived back at the paddock with only about an hour and a half to go before it was going to go dark. But when I got there, the Lapland bunting hadn't been seen in a while. There was me hoping for a rerun of the yellow-browed warbler from the last video, where I came back twice and second time was truly lucky. This time, it didn't look like it was going to happen. I stuck around for about an hour watching some of the other birds and also being endlessly entertained by the horses rolling around on the floor. The Lapland bunting, after a while, did make an appearance on the back fence again. It had a stretch and a bit of a preen, and then did its disappearing act.
Hey folks, the Lapland bunting wasn't really playing. When I arrived back from looking at the snow buntings, it had vanished, and then it appeared on the far fence in the field, disappeared again for a bit, popped up again, and then disappeared again. So I'm happy you've seen it, but it was very, very distant and brief. I'm just going to have a quick walk round before I have to head home, so stick with me.
I walked round for a short while. I did see a few birds, including this very obliging robin. Just as I texted Kaylee to say I was heading home, I walked past one of the other birders that was at the horse paddock earlier. He said to me, "If only you'd stayed for another 5 minutes. The Lapland bunting came and sat on the fence post nearby and then landed on the floor only about 20 feet away." I acted happy that he'd had really good views, but inside I was slowly seething, kicking myself, regretting that I'd left when I did. My thoughts now were, did I have enough time to go back in the hope that it might show close again? Oh hell, why not? I hot-footed it back to the paddock, and I'm so glad I did. When I arrived, the Lapland bunting was feeding on the floor with the linnets, not far away from the very pleased group of birders watching them, and myself, whose patience had finally paid off. Again, here at this reserve, it was second time lucky. Despite the few excited onlookers, the Lapland bunting and its linnet friends seemed pretty comfortable feeding only a matter of feet in front of us. This species, as its name suggests, breeds in the Arctic Circle, across Arctic, Siberia, Europe, Canada and America. The birds that breed in Alaska and Canada winter in the northernmost United States, whereas the Siberian birds winter in Central and Eastern Asia. Any Lapland buntings that breed in northern Scandinavia winter in southern Sweden, Denmark, and a few other sites in northwest Europe, including France. Luckily for us, not only do some Lapland buntings pass through the UK on migration, some even stick around for the winter. Numbers here though can be sporadic, with some years there only being a few dozen records, and others there being hundreds. Regardless, it's definitely worth looking out for them, as this time of year they can be found almost anywhere around the coast, joining mixed flocks of other birds like linnets and snow buntings. Fascinatingly, back in 2011 in Canada, a snow bunting Lapland bunting hybrid was recorded. This individual here today is a male and was very boldly coloured for this time of year, and was still putting on quite a show feeding close to us birders. Although we didn't need this for our year list, seeing this Lapland bunting like this so close today, after putting in all the hard work, was a genuine year highlight for me. I was absolutely ecstatic.
How cool was that?
Being back here today had really paid off, but I was in for one last treat before I got to the car. This little fella ran across the path and then briefly stood under a bush for me. Again, I'm rubbish at stoats and weasels, so feel free to tell me which one. Regardless, what a great way to end the afternoon.
Thanks so much for watching. Please like, please subscribe, and please press that notification bell. We'll see you next time. We've got a great video coming up.